Hello everyone, my name's Oliver East and today I'm here to review Anomia 2, Anomia 2.0. It's effectively a sequel that's exactly the same as Anomia. I hadn't played that original game. This is effectively new cards, new decks, so let's see how the game plays and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts. To start with, you need to choose which of the two decks you're going to play with for the basic mode. You can also do a giant Anomia game by combining both of these decks, or even both of these decks with the two from Anomia 1. Picking the deck that you're going to use, you're going to give it a bit of a shuffle and then split it into two approximately equal piles, leaving a little gap in the middle, and I'll show you why in a moment. To start the game off, the first player chooses which pile, it doesn't matter which, they want to draw from, and takes a card and places it in front of themselves. The next player, going clockwise around the table, does the same. Again, it can be from either pile. At this point, you stop to see if either of the symbols, if any of the players' symbols match. They don't, so we carry on. So player 1 here draws a card and we now have a match between these two cards. Star sign and Asian country. So this is between player 1 and player 2. You have to, if you're say player 1, quickly shout out something for the other player's card. So you might shout out Gemini. The other player is trying to shout out an Asian country while you're doing that. Say Japan. Whoever does that first takes the other opponent's card as a point and just adds it to a pile somewhere near themselves. If we had this scenario and this player had lost, so the card came over to player 3, it could then trigger another match. And this is conducted in the same way. These two players shout out quickly about their opponent's card. The other players, in this case, can effectively act as a judge to make sure that what's shouted out actually makes sense. Sometimes you will draw a wild card. Now this doesn't go on your main pile, it sits between the two decks, so everyone can see it. It's now in play and means these two symbols will match as well as matching against themselves. So if the next player was to draw this card, you'd then be competing quickly between these two players to shout out for this person a woodwind instrument and this person a county. This wild card stays in play until another one comes out of the deck, potentially linking two other symbols. The game goes until the decks are depleted, so for your standard game it is just that deck you're playing with, but if you're playing with more decks, they'll all be shuffled in, so these piles here will just be taller to begin with. Once the draw pile ends, you count up how many points you've got, which is just how many cards you've taken from your opponents as points, and whoever has the most wins. There are a couple of other little rules, such as you shouldn't flip towards you should flip towards your opponents, just so you don't get an advantage. There's also things like you can make the game harder by saying no repetition is allowed. And that's how to play Anomia 2.0. So let's start with the production quality. It's decks of cards. So they are very easy to shuffle, they're nice and obvious cards. You can tell which deck they're supposed to be from. It's very clear. You have the sort of yellow backing or you have the purpley sort of backing. Really easy to know which deck your cards are from if you've shuffled them and you want to split them out, or if you're playing with one, you can then play another game with completely different cards by switching deck. Now, the symbols on them also very easy and obvious to work out what is what. Now, more importantly, to tell them apart. Because they are different shapes and colours, it doesn't matter if you're colourblind, you can tell the difference, you can match, you know that that is at least an apple, even if it's maybe to you not green apple, and you can see that it matches with the same symbol from across the table. I also really like that the way the cards are designed, it says the words in both directions. So I personally do sometimes struggle trying to read upside down. So if someone had flipped a card and it was only saying it towards them, that would be a problem for me because it would take me a little bit longer to read it, and this game's all about those split seconds of trying to think quickly. That would slow me down. So I'm really glad that the card design, it says the topic in both directions. That's really helpful. So coming on to the gameplay, it's all about being super fast and frantically trying to work out something to do with your opponent's card. And that's a bit different. Normally there's a card in the middle and you're trying to be fastest about that, but you're shouting out about a very different topic. Just because yours is a lightning bolt and you sort of, one of your opponents, your friends sat around the table, their card's a lightning bolt, doesn't mean that those topics match in the slightest. In fact, more commonly, they are just super different. And because of that, it means that you're constantly having to check what everyone else's card is around the table. You flip a card over and you're like, okay, that's what mine is. Okay, no match. The next player. And again, you're now just watching them. So it does mean you're engaged on your turn, looking at what everyone else has got. But even on other players' turns, you're engaged to see what they turn over. And the game doubles down on that with that sort of wild match card in the middle. Because all of a sudden, you sort of do a check, right? No one's got a lightning bolt like me. Oh, but the middle says I also match to those cloud shape things. Okay, no one's got that either. And it's little things like that that make this work, because all of a sudden it's not obvious. We're not all just shouting out something to do with, you turn a card over, shout out something to do with that topic. You have to be on, not on edge, but you have to sort of be on your toes, looking around the table to see any of those matches coming up. And at times, you can turn a card over and be one of the most observant people normally, but actually miss it, and someone else almost has to go, you want to check your card again? And then all of a sudden, you and probably the other person around the table are looking down like, oh my god, I've got to get a match. And there is definitely some excitement there, but if you're one of those people that doesn't like sort of the pressure being put on the spot, you might not like that, because only you and that one other person around the table are going to have that match. Everyone else is therefore going to be watching you and the other player trying to come up with a match. For this style game, that works actually quite well, because it means you've got judges around the table to just nicely work out, yep, that counts, you've won the point. Or straight away people to go, no, that one doesn't count, or I know what you're thinking of, but that's not the right thing. It's just, some games would rely on just everyone shouting out an answer and you go, yep, that's mine, everyone agrees. This, it's almost like you've got a competition with one other player. So if you like being put on the spot, you'll love that. If you don't, you're not sure you're going to like that aspect of the game, which is quite a lot of it. Now, as I suggested, the topics are quite varied, and that's super important. Varied within the individual decks as well as the two. So one player might have types of weather, another world wonders, coffee shops, someone else might have, and TV channels, sports, so many different things that it means that, yes, you're not going to have knowledge about all of these different things, but you should at least be able to come up with something. You might not be able to come up with something faster than your opponent does when you've got that match, but you should at least get something. There are some topics in there that have stumped some people. Some people really aren't sort of sports fans. They're trying to come up with like a sports team. That really was sort of problematic for them. But then in the next round, when they were trying to guess a type of cake from someone else's card, they got it instantly because, well, they like baking. So because it's a fun, fast, quick game, yeah, you lose one category that you don't know much about, but the next one you probably, or almost certainly, know something about, if not quite a lot about it. So it keeps it varied, and yeah, your knowledge doesn't have to be super wide. it doesn't also have to be super in-depth. You don't need to know much about these. It's not going to go down to, you know, quantum mechanics in physics, which would be an entertaining twist for me having done a master's in it. But, you know, I could come up with that, but not many people would. This game keeps it a lot broader than that and allows everyone to at least have a bit of a punt at an answer for each and every, sometimes weird and wonderful category. But there's also plenty of normal ones in there too. The game length feels about right to me. You take one deck, shuffle it, you split it in half, put it in the middle, and you are off, turning over those cards and working your way through what are two quite large decks. Each of them has 92 cards of those topics and then 8 of those wild cards spread throughout. So A, you're not going to constantly be dragging out wild cards, so that's not going to be flipping and flapping back and forth too much, but you've got lots of categories there to make your way through. So you think this game is going to take quite a while, but it doesn't, because on your turn you're simply flipping a card over and checking, and then the next player is going. You'll actually get round the table quite fast. Everyone checking, no match. Next person, no match. And there are sort of lulls, not necessarily a lull in the fun, but in terms of categories being triggered. We had sort of multiple routes around the table, goes around the table, where there were no matches. And almost that tension and excitement built up for when it actually happened, because all of a sudden, people were like, right, no, move on. Oh, no, it is a match. It is a match. And yeah, sometimes it comes out the deck and it's like, right, we've got a match. The next player, they've got a match. Sometimes you're in a match multiple turns in a row as people are turning over and matching with the card that's on top of your sort of pile that you've built up. And that can happen really fast. It can, however, mean that the game sort of ends slightly on a lackluster front. The game ends when those draw piles are depleted, and it means that at the end you can go around the table a little bit and have no matches, turn over the last card, no match, okay, we're done, score points. However, it's very fun when you're turning those last few cards over and getting matches, because it's like you've got that final chance when the deck is running out to get those last points to win. It's just a shame that sometimes that doesn't happen. It would almost be good if somehow you could load the bottom of the deck so you knew that at the end there would be a match, rather than potentially there not being one. That'd just be something extra that would take the game sort of to the next level and never have that potential, we've finished, there wasn't any matches near the end, let's count points. So Anomia 2 is a fun twist on those trivia style things where you're trying to get an answer but not to the card in front of you, to what's in front of your opponent when there's a match. Some people will like that pressure of the two people being sort of in the spotlight, some won't. The broadness of the sort of topics and the variety means that, yeah, you can have no idea on one round, or one card, sorry, but the next you're almost certainly going to know something, so there is something there for everyone to sort of get into, regardless of their knowledge. And that's why it's kind of easy to recommend Anomia 2 for a family game night, that sort of thing. People there will enjoy it. I don't think it's necessarily the most exciting party game that's going to, you know, cause everyone to laugh, but it's fun just trying to get as many points as you can while playing through. And I think that's where it sits. It's fun, it's maybe not the most inspiring, or, you know, it's not going to make you laugh party game, but it's sort of twists on that sort of trivia of think of something in this sort of knowledge house. Can you get there quicker than your opponent? And there is a bit of a rush there. So for the right people, definitely worth checking out. And I'll give it 6.5 out of 10 because it's good plus, but that's sort of where it sits. It's not fantastic, but it certainly is a good game to check out. Anyway, that's my review. If you like Anomia or I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, check out other reviews on the Dice Tower.